Jody Balma, who's here tonight to really make us understand what just happened. Professor Jody Balma started her career at Fullerton College in 2000 and was named Fullerton College Teacher of the Year in 2014 and 2021. California Senator Josh Newman named her as the 2021 Woman of the Year for Senate District 29. She's actively involved in the League of Women Voters and hosts local candidates forums throughout North Orange County each election cycle. Professor Balma specializes in American politics and California state and local government and is a regular on-the-record analyst for newspapers and radio media outlets such as the Los Angeles Times, the Orange County Register, and NPR. She was named 2022 Orange County Community College Teacher of the Year. Thank you. Professor Balma is uniquely qualified to give a post-election analysis, and you better believe that. After Professor Balma speaks, there will be time for questions. Please write your questions on the index cards that you have on your tables and hand them to either Jonathan Adler, who's here, or Jean, who's right there, who will read the questions, and then we'll have time for answers. Please join me in welcoming Professor Balma to give her analysis of the recent midterms. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome. We're going to talk about what we know, and we're still counting, and that's a good thing because it means that we're processing the ballots, we're verifying the ballots, but it is frustrating because it takes a lot of patience. So we'll talk about what we know. The first thing is that the midterm red wave did not occur, which is huge. If you remember in 2010, Obama famously got shellacked and lost 63 seats in the House. So the idea that this is close, Republicans are going to take it, but the House is going to be really a narrow margin. So that's huge. Where's my red dot? There it is. 2002 was the biggest anomaly where Bush only lost 8 and retained the majority. Obviously, 2002, after 9/11, was a unique situation. So we'll talk about what happened in all of that. We still don't know. 50 to 49 in the United States Senate. This is a moving target, so I'm a little bit behind. It's 217, 218. Will likely come tomorrow or maybe the next day, but it's 217 right now. We're looking at maybe 219, 220. It could go either way. There's still a couple of districts that are way too close to call to prognosticate, but it will come down, the Senate will come down to Georgia with that recall. Unlike the recall in 2021, where there was still time for people who didn't register to vote in the January 5th election of 2021, that date has been moved up, and so it will be December 6th, and the registration for Georgia has already been closed. So there's no there's no registration drives going on. Statewide elections, it's fairly simple. Every Democrat on the ballot won statewide. That's not a surprise. Democrats in the state of California outnumber Republicans 2-1, with another third being no party preference or NPP voters. So the Democrats swept, including the race that was not an incumbent. Malia Cohen was not an incumbent. Lan Hee Chen had the best chance of being the first Republican elected statewide since 2006, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was on the ballot. He lost, and fairly decisively lost. So we shall see what the Republican Party of California decides to do as a result. The Secretary of State's Website has super fun maps if you want to look and see how California voted. It's divided by county, and so you can see the blue counties voted for Gavin Newsom and currently the orange counties, although it's possible, but when all is said and done, that Gavin Newsom may win by a very slight margin in Orange County. But you can sort of see the population shifts there, that there's a lot of California where nobody lives. And counties don't vote. What was surprising to me, because there were so many school board races where conservative extremists like those we have on the Orange County Board of Education were running, including in Placentia Yorba Linda, which is up in North County, where I'm paying a lot of attention, Fullerton, Tustin, Orange. I was surprised that there wasn't more of a campaign against Tony Thurmond, the superintendent of public instruction. He actually won by a bigger margin than Gavin Newsom did. So that was a positive, that the extremists running in local offices didn't seem to communicate to anybody that you could also vote against Tony Thurmond. Okay, great, we'll take the win. Voter turnout, this is political data analysis, which is super fun to dive into, and I use it to shame my college students into voting, because even though we've done an excellent job in the state of California, DMV motor voter that registers people when they get their driver's license, registration drives, we've done an excellent job, and I tell my League of Women Voters friends all the time, we've changed the dynamics. It's no longer getting young people registered. They're the largest group, 6 million. 18 to 34-year-olds are registered to vote. We could applaud that. Except they don't vote. The problem is that we need to invest in civic education. We need to teach them why. We need to have informed and engaged electorate. And so we need to do that in our schools, we need to do that in our community organizations, and we need to get them to actually understand what's on the ballot. Because the things they care about are on the ballot. Public education is on the ballot. Criminal justice reform is on the ballot. Reproductive rights is on the ballot. Land use is on the ballot. Affordable housing is on the ballot. Homelessness is on the ballot every single time. So we have to get them to understand that. But so far, our society, our state, our community, and our county have not done a good job engaging young people. So that's the next battle. Because they don't turn out to vote. They're way down here. Seniors, we have done a great job. If you look down here, 69% of the votes cast are by voters 50 and older, even though they're less than 50% of the voters. So now we have to turn our attention to engaging and informing young people to get them to vote as well. Los Angeles mayor, the numbers have gone up slightly, but we see Karen Bass leading in the race. So Rick Caruso's $100 million didn't buy him an election. And if you want to know why I'm very happy that the sheriff of Los Angeles lost his race, read the Los Angeles Times. Gustavo Ariana has done a great job of explaining exactly why that is a victory for everyone. So moving on to Orange County. So on election night, 33.6% voter turnout. Now we're up to 48.5. The reality is that in California, now that we have, since March of 2020, every single voter gets a mail-in ballot. We no longer have election day, we have election season. And it's 2 months long. And it takes until all the ballots are counted. So we'll probably see voter turnout above 50% when all is said and done for a midterm election. That's not bad. Again, more people who are informed and engaged, that number can absolutely go up. As people, the cost of voting has gone down. You get a ballot at your house. It's very simple to turn it in. Now we just have to engage people in the why. 38% of registered voters in Orange County are Democrats, 33% Republican, and 24% no political party. I have to say, when I moved down to Orange County to go to college, to move in with Dr. Lee Goldstein's daughter, to go to Cal State Fullerton, my friends in the Central Valley threw me a disappearing behind the orange curtain Soviet Union style party, because in 1988, this was the party of Republicans. So the fact that many of you in the room are the reason for this change, you deserve a big round of applause. I wish I'd known you were here back then. That's a big factor. 116,000 votes left to count. That is slowly dropping. We had 50,000 counted today, and so that number is going. We're still waiting for the very last of the ballots that may be delivered by the post service. All of the ballots from the drop boxes and the vote centers have been collected, and now it's just a process of verifying and processing. Just quickly, all of those retention judges that you voted yes or no, they all won by a big margin. I would like to remove them from the ballot, but that's my personal opinion, because in 1934, we decided to put them on the ballot. Exactly once has any justice lost, and that was in 1986, when our local Tony Rackauckus joined with Duke Majan, who was governor, raised $7 million to get progressives off of the Supreme Court and removed 3 of them, and that's the last time a justice has lost a retention. So, what we do with that, I don't know. They all won. As noted, Michelle Bell, an incredible and wonderful candidate, won. That is a big victory. Absolutely. Orange County is better for having her on the bench. So let's talk about Orange County elections. We have one race that's too close to call that we'll go into a little more detail. Michelle Steele has won Congressional District 45. Lou Correa easily won 46. Young Kim won Congressional District 40, as was mentioned, and then Mike Levin is ahead and projected to win. We have to collect, that's a 2-county district, so we have to collect those San Diego votes that add to it. This is some of the data from the Orange County Registrar of Voters. They have amazing transparent data that I like to dig into. So let me show you what we're looking at. This is the map. Michelle Steele won all the green precincts, and this is where Jay Chen won precincts here. These are only the Orange County ballots. You have to add them to look, but Michelle Steele is at 54%. It's dropping a little bit today, but she's still safely in the lead when you collect all of the ballots from Los Angeles County. But here's one of the interesting things that we'll see is a little bit different in other races, where because Trump convinced Republican voters that the mail is not safe, that mail-in ballots are not safe, Republicans in Orange County still vote in person on Election Day. And that means that our vote center numbers look very different from our mail-in ballots. So one of the reasons I'm gonna be able to project, media's gonna be able to project that Katie Porter is going to be victorious, even though it's very scary to check the numbers every day, is because the mail-in ballots are what are left to count. And those are trending to Democrats, because Democrats trust the mail. So here, Michelle Steele got 74% of the vote center ballots, those people who voted in person at a vote center. Then, what we're gonna see is a little bit different, is they split the mail-in ballots. That may be because Asian Republican voters trust the mail. It may be because there were churches involved with ballot harvesting, the legal kind of collecting ballots. So we're gonna look at that as we parse out what all this data means, but you'll be able to see in a couple of slides how different that is from a lot of the others. So Katie Porter versus Scott Baugh is a more traditional split. Again, the purple is where Scott Baugh is collecting. Not a surprise that Huntington and Newport went strongly for the Republican, and that the more inland areas and around UCI went for Katie Porter. 50.79, but still ahead and leading. That number has not dropped. 72% of Scott Baugh's votes came from the vote center, 58% of the vote by mail. So when we look at just vote by mail, that's a more traditional split for the Democrats in Orange County. Even among nonpartisan races, where we're seeing Republican endorsed school board members, Democrat endorsed school board members, these trends are holding. The outstanding House races in California, this is from the New York Times projection, that Michelle Steele will end up winning by +3, that Katie Porter will end up winning by a larger margin. So we're seeing some of that. The irony, of course, that if California did not have an independent redistricting commission, the House would be held by the Democrats. Damn fairness. If we had allowed the Democrats in Sacramento to gerrymander the heck out of the districts, Nancy Pelosi would still be Speaker of the House, because it's looking very clearly like control of the House of Representatives is going to come down to California. But all is not lost. So this is the California Senate. The odd numbered districts are on the ballot in 2024. So Josh Newman and Dave Min were drawn into a district together. They are both hoping the other gets another job by then. I'm pretty sure they're both on the phone to Joe Biden's administration saying, "Isn't there a job for my good friend?" We'll see. There is a scenario, of course, if Dianne Feinstein in 2024 retires and Katie Porter runs for the United States Senate, that Dave Min would then run for Congress and Josh Newman could have the Senate seat, just in case you have a wish list. The Senate seats are the only one we're waiting to call. Kelly Serrato easily won that Republican district. Bob Archuleta, my little tiny Brea, got thrown into Los Angeles County, and so now I have a new senator. Tom Umberg easily won. Janet Wynn easily won. Catherine Blakespeare is leading in the vote and likely to win. That's South Orange County and North San Diego combining to form a district. So she's in the lead. Not that it will make a difference to the makeup of the California Senate, but a win's a win. The Assembly, of course, twice as many districts, so a much more crowded map to go over. Phil Chen easily won Avellino Valencia. That's going to be an important race when we talk about Anaheim, because he's currently on the city council, now elected to the California Assembly, which means that control of the city council matters a lot, because they will decide how to replace that seat on the city council through either appointing someone, as they did last time when Jordan Brandman had to resign, or a special election that's incredibly costly, but could have a different result. So that race is important for a different reason. Kati Petri Norris pulled ahead and likely to win. That was a tough race because it was an incumbent versus an incumbent with Steve Choi there. Lori Davies easily won. The two Republicans that got drawn in, this is all the way over to Murrieta and Temecula, those two Republicans are too close to call. Some Republicans gonna win. Diane Dixon, Tri Ta, and Blanca Pacheco. Sharon Quirk-Silva had a tough race as well. She was losing on election night, which scared a lot of us in North County, but those mail-in ballots continue to favor her in both Los Angeles and Orange County. Yep. Orange County races were all decided in June because everybody got a majority and there were no runoffs, including the sheriff of Orange County, who didn't even have a challenger. So even though there are 38% of voters who are Democrat and there should be competitive races with runoffs, that is not true in Orange County races. So we've got to get better information and engagement about how these offices matter. The supervisor's race, for the very first time, we may be looking at a majority Democratic Orange County Board of Supervisors. I've spent 20 years trying to get people engaged with local elections, and in March 2020, I was a little disappointed that the Republicans listened and took over the Board of Education and elected Don Wagner to the March 2020 primary, which then, of course, the pandemic hit a week later, and we realized how important those offices are. But Doug Chafee easily beat Sonny Park. There were two Democrats. These are nominally nonpartisan races, but we know who belongs to which party. And certainly if you don't, you can find out through the endorsements, which kind of belie that nonpartisanship. Two Democrats, too close to call. Vicente Sarmiento is in the lead. We'll see if that holds with 2 Democrats. It's hard to tell who's going to get the advantage with mail-in ballots. And Katrina Foley continues to be in the lead no matter how small it is. So this is Doug Chafee's. The green is Doug Chafee's. Not a surprise that most of the areas that lean a little more Republican, Brea and Yorba Linda over here, a little bit of Fullerton that knows him well as city council member, and then Sunny Park from Buena Park, well known there, and so that kind of followed. This is Katrina Foley at 50.73. Holding on to that lead, and then Pat Bates in the purple, where she's better known down in South County. So that continues to hold, and the mail-in ballots are favoring that as well. And so you can see this, Republicans not having a choice decided to vote for the more moderate Democrat, 61.77 voted for Doug Chafee, but he's also leading by mail. A lot of Democrats also supported him. And then down here, Katrina Foley, 67% of voters at vote centers voted for Pat Bates. But Katrina Foley is leading with 57% of the mail-in ballots. So that tends to mean that she'll hold on to that. It would have to be a really big dump of Republican ballots, and we just don't see that trend switching. This is Anaheim. Of course, we know that the FBI came calling. Not an unusual thing in Orange County. That they usually target our sheriffs. But Anaheim had a cabal. And as I tell my students, if you're going to do illegal things in back rooms where people might be wearing wiretaps, you might want to come up with a different name for your group than cabal, because it looks bad as a headline. But they did. SOAR, which is Disney's independent expenditure that dumps millions into Anaheim races, decided to leave Ashley Aiken pretty far alone and target the majority of the city council members, and that worked. They spend $1 million in city council races routinely. So today, this number shifted, and Carlos Leon, Al Jabar, and Hari Sharkar Law are the reformist candidates, not the SOAR-backed candidates, not the Disney-backed candidates. It's fairly clear that Meeks and Rubalcaba are going to win. Their margins are just too high to overcome, but we do see Carlos Leon with a 3-vote lead as of tonight. So as someone in 2020 that watched the tie vote in Brea school board elections, they rolled dice to determine who won our school board election. In Anaheim, if it ends with a tie, which it may or may not, who knows, there's still a lot of ballots to be counted, but it will be a game of chance that determines the outcome. And so that has a big impact on whether or not the Disney, if they're able to elect 3 candidates, could get a bonus candidate for free. I guess buy 3 city council races, get 1 for free, would be how they work. Because then that Avellino Valencia seat that is going to be open could be back appointed with somebody from that. It's like, this is the school board, 2 progressive Democrats running against one another. This is your town, Laguna Woods. Well done. 71% turnout. So your get out the vote worked. This is by precinct. Whether or not a majority of Democrats or a majority of Republicans voted, it is completely blue. Well done. So really, that's really impressive. So this is fun political data analysis. You've got, obviously with age restricted, just a few, 78 African American, 666 Latino, 3,054 Asian. This is the age that I was meaning to talk about, 279 18 to 34-year-olds, 294 35 to 49-year-olds, and then obviously the majority of your voters, 12,748, are 65 or older with massive turnout, 75%. And so most of the folks who voted are in that. This is your Republican versus Democrat registration, and this is turnout. So 76% turnout among Democrats that are registered in Laguna Woods. which is fun to see. Just in case you wanted to see the map and know the precincts that you walked and who voted for whom in the city council race, it's kind of fun to see that Carol Moore won all of those green areas. You may recognize some of those neighborhoods, you door knockers, but that's a really impressive number. And is that where Annie lives? Maybe? Sometimes you can tell. Saddleback Valley School Board. This is the outcome here. This was from yesterday, but Dan Walsh winning his seat, Barbara Schulman winning her seat, and your Laguna Woods Cannabis Business Tax Ordinance strongly, 62%. And then Mission Viejo was the other race that you asked me to take a look at. It was kind of interesting. There was some shenanigans of trying to extend term limits and stay on the city council after it was legally not allowed to do so. Interesting that the two incumbents, Greg Rass and Ed Sachs, split their votes. And so Cynthia Vasquez is far ahead. Sure, go ahead and applaud. The one district that didn't have an incumbent, Bob Roosh, is winning that, and then Brian Goodall was an incumbent who didn't break the rules. The ones who did were in red, but Wendy Bucknam easily winning, and Trish Kelly, who was an incumbent but not one who had violated the rules. So that's the outcome of Mission Viejo City Council. Taking a look at the vote center versus vote by mail, you can kind of see how that worked for Brian Goodall. Strong Republican support at the vote center, and then also pretty strong in vote by mail. And this is the other three where Greg Raths clearly was winning the Republican vote, but then Ed Sachs was coming and splitting the rest with Cynthia Vasquez, and then she's winning the vote by mail. So I think those numbers will all hold as vote by mail continues. Just to cover the ballot measures, Proposition 1 easily won, reproductive rights. Sure. $500 million was spent on Prop 26 and 27, and both failed miserably. And Prop 27 is losing by 83%, which goes down in the history of propositions as the worst defeat that we've seen. So maybe out-of-state gambling will not come back. 28 easily won. Even these red counties that voted against it, they were really close, 51, 52. 29, hopefully the union for the dialysis clinics will stop because Californians keep rejecting it by higher and higher percentages. This is the third proposition, and we have rejected all three. It's a little bit of extortion as they continue to put it on and make the for-profit. They could get it in the legislature easily, just not appropriate for the initiative, which is what California voters. Prop 30 is the closest. It was in the lead, 55% polling yes, before Governor Newsom decided to campaign against Prop 30, and so now it is losing by probably about 55% when all is said and done. San Francisco refuses, and the folks who have suffered from fires said, we don't care. Proposition 31, a referendum, which means the legislature passed it, and then the tobacco companies spent $20 million to keep their market for another 2 years. That passed, and so there is now a ban on flavored tobacco. However, unlike an initiative, the legislature can change it at any time if they decide to. So that gives them a little bit of flexibility. And so that's it. Questions?
All right, so we already have some early questions, so I'm going to go through that. But if you have other questions, Jonathan is picking them up. Kind of a procedural question, and that is, why can't we get the count early? Why can't we count early ballots before the election night, and then we don't have as much of a delay?
So the Registrar of Voters of Orange County is the best. Neil Kelly, oh, love him. He recently retired. Bob Page has continued. All reports are that he is continuing to do everything that Neil Kelly set up. Their staff is incredible. So the answer is they do a lot with those mail-in ballots. I study this since August when the candidate deadline. So when I get that ballot on October 11th, I mailed it back on October 11th. On October 12th, I got a text that it was received, and they processed it. They were ready. So at 8:05 on November 8th, I got to see my ballots along with a whole bunch of other early ballots. 8:05 is all of those ballots who have been processed. We don't want them to count them early, though. We don't want it to leak out that Democrats are winning. That'll motivate the other side. So they do it right. You don't want them counted before. You want them processed. You want them cured. If your signature is wrong, if your handwriting is a little bit different, you want to be able to cure and update your signature. But our county has an incredibly efficient, secure process. And then they update it 4 or 5 more times that night. And then every day at 5 p.m. So the fact that we are still counting is because people voted on November 8th. That's fine, that's election day, but now we gotta process it and verify and make sure they didn't vote twice.
Okay.
Sure.
Another question about Orange County. Someone is asking, what do you think of Orange County gerrymandering and how does it compare to other counties or states?
So what we do, and if you remember how strange that little crescent roll of Jay Chen versus Michelle Steele is, that's to protect a majority-minority district for Latino voters in the center of the county. So our gerrymandering, even though I joked that it'd be great if we gerrymandered the heck out of California and get Democrats elected, the reality is that it's fair process. Those 12 members, 14 members who volunteer to do the maps, it is transparent process. They do an excellent job of creating fair districts. It's just frustrating when you don't get the outcome that you want. But yeah, it's an incredibly fair system of not considering where incumbents live, of not considering the partisanship of those districts. And so they're fair.
Okay, we have another question. We are looking to get civics vote, quote, in parentheses, voting in middle school. I'm in middle school and I want to learn more.
Sure, what we need to do is flip civic education to not be national, to not be American government. It needs to be municipal. We have an example, a community in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and their civics teachers started 12th grade civics to be the first semester in school boards. They did an exit interview. They wrote papers about how the school district operated, and the top 5 students presented to the school board what needed to be fixed. Then in the spring semester, they did Tacoma Park 2050, imagining what their community was going to look like when they were working as part of the sandwich generation of raising young kids and caring for older parents and what they wanted. And they ran, working with the League of Women Voters, election forums. 5 years after that started, the young people were the most well-informed people in Tacoma Park, and their voter turnout was so high that they proposed to lower the the voting age from municipal only to 16. That's what we need to do. Now, California has toyed with that, but they don't have the education part. That doesn't work. We have to scaffold civic education. You would not take War and Peace and give it to a 3rd grader. We should not give a 4-page ballot to an 18-year-old. We should take the municipal races, city council and school board only, to 16 and 17-year-olds and let them learn how to do research. Let them learn who their community leaders are. Because if you go to a candidate forum, usually within 5 to 10 minutes, you know exactly who you want to vote against. Or for. If we do that, lead with education, and I'm working with Anaheim Union High School to do that. They have the civic literacy. They have 250 teachers across interdisciplinary studies that have been taught how to engage students in civics. If we can do that in Anaheim, I think it'll spread, but you have to lead with education. And then you can drop it to middle school.
Okay, a question about a specific race. Was Dr. Asif Mahmood doomed because of him being a Muslim, or because of his accent and foreign-sounding name, or lack of DNC support, or what?
It was going to be a tough race because it was a new district, because it's a midterm election. There were probably 50 reasons that you could say why, there are a lot of reasons, but it was always favored for Young Kim to win. Even though she had not represented that particular district, she had incumbent on the ballot. That is a huge advantage. She had fundraising advantage because she was the incumbent. She had run a campaign before, so that was a big, big advantage. I don't think it was so much of those other things, although they can't be discounted. But I think it was just a harder race to win. Jay Chen, obviously was targeted with the anti-Asian attack ads that really hurt the China's Choice yard signs that were all over Asian American groups that actually took away their endorsement of Michelle Steele at that point. But she had incumbency. She had Sean Steele, her husband, was the former California chair of the California Republican Party. He has massive connections, massive money. It was just a really tough race. 2024 will be much easier in Congressional District 45. Still an uphill battle for 40, just because of the demographics and the voting records in that district. But depending on who runs, it's a little bit easier.
What's the probability of recounts in Orange County?
Sure, certainly we could have recounts, and anyone can file a lawsuit for a recount depending on how close the numbers are. It's an incredibly labor-intensive process. Not a whole lot of votes change. It's incredibly expensive because if you sue, you have to fund it. So it depends on how close the numbers are and whether or not you really think you can win. I was party to a recount in it was school board. School bond for the North Orange County Community College District. It was incredibly, incredibly close, and the opposition that didn't want to raise their property taxes funded a recount, and we ended up being victorious. Cost them, I think, $80,000 to fund the recount. We won by 15 votes. So I take credit for all 15.
Okay, there have been several questions about Kevin McCarthy, such as what are his strengths and weaknesses? Do you think he's going to get the speakership and today. So on? So
that happened today. He won the internal caucus. He did not get all of the votes. There was a split. The Chinese curse of may you live in interesting times. I think Nancy Pelosi may have cursed him with may you govern with a slim majority. It is a tough needle to thread to keep 220, 219, 221 Republicans together. In the best of times, speakers of the House call it herding cats across a desert or nailing Jell-O to a wall to try to keep a caucus together. With the Republican Party so split, with the Freedom Caucus, with traditional, more establishment Republicans in the mix, it's going to be very difficult. I don't know Kevin McCarthy's managerial style internally, whether or not he'll be able to hold it together. I wouldn't bet against getting ahead of lettuce and seeing if his speakership lasts longer, a la Liz Truss as prime minister. But stranger things have happened. So I don't know. He's winning right now. The challenger didn't get enough votes, so it was a very small minority against. I think more protest. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are fighting. So grab some popcorn.
Okay, another nationwide question. There was a large increase in Gen X voters in this election. Why do you think that is, and why wasn't that the case in California?
So Gen Z, I'm Gen X.
Gen Z, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I read it wrong.
That's all right. Gen Z, so those are the folks. Maxwell Frost, the first Gen Z member of the House of Representatives at 25 years old. That's constitutionally the youngest that you can be. So that Gen Z will definitely follow. Yeah, I think that Gen Z turned out in states where they felt their rights were threatened. And so losing reproductive rights definitely is an incentive to turn out to vote. California, there's a certain security in feeling that whether or not you put it into the Constitution or not won't matter. But the reality is in California, we don't know yet. Every single registered voter had a ballot, and so who knows who voted late. So we won't know the real outcome of Gen Z, but they didn't feel threatened here. A couple of members of the Democratic Party often said, if we bring back the draft, we would increase voter turnout among young people. I don't think that's necessarily the best reason. But Fox is absolutely scared. Jesse Waters on Fox News on election night said that these unmarried women are voting against us, so Republican men should put a ring on it. I don't think that's how it works, but Google Jesse Waters and sex scandal. So the other thing that Republicans were joking about as pundits, joking, I'll put in air quotes, was raising the voting age to 25. Okay. If voter suppression is how you have to win elections, that's clearly why we're seeing so much attack on voter access.
Okay, a couple of questions about the state of New York. What happened there? Why were so many of those blue states flipped?
Yeah, there's internal politics in New York, and the New York Democratic Party is under strife and internal fights, and so there were some protest votes, and there was just a lot going on. And again, if you don't feel that something's at risk, you are less enthusiastic to turn out for somebody that you have no interest in voting for. We call those clothespin elections, where you have to hold your nose and vote. So that's certainly some of what's going on in New York.
Okay, going back to the two questions about civics education and young people. One person asked, where can I volunteer to help with civic education? And another person has asked, what do you say to your students to encourage them to vote?
Oh, I spend most of the semester telling them why it's important to vote, and then I bring guest speakers in, and they work on elections. So my students are really engaged, and I think I have 7 who are elected, former students who are elected to school boards and city councils because of that local involvement. Unfortunately, thank you, one of the reasons that I'm quoted so often in the Voice of OC is because I am one of 3 college professors who cover local politics. It's me and 2 guys at Chapman. And we have looked and looked and looked to find other people who are covering local politics. And the reality is that when you're talking about trying to encourage young people to vote, it's tough to make the claim that your vote matters in the California Electoral College. It's tough to make the claim that your vote matters for the governor's race. But when there's a tie for school board, when there's a 3-vote difference for city council of Anaheim, that matters. And so local government is where people can make the most difference. And I think one of the problems is that civics teachers in high schools often don't live in the towns that they are teaching in. We don't have good books about how to teach local government because each city in Orange County, it's its own little ecosystem. So we need to get curriculum. We need to write curriculum. We need to write curriculum for those ethnic studies classes about the history of Fullerton, about the history of Anaheim, about the history of Santa Ana. We need to stop pretending that all history is national. And we need to stop pretending that all politics is national. To quote Tip O'Neill, all politics is local. Until we start teaching that, we're not going to have good civics education.
Okay, one of our audience members asks about the Fourth Amendment and interfering with democracy, interfering with an election, And I assume the inference, I infer that this has to do with Donald Trump and why does he have the option of running for president?
Well, he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. And you know, those Republicans who on Tuesday night and Wednesday decided that they no longer were supporting him don't earn a whole lot of points with me. I feel like January 6th was the day that you decide that you were done with Donald Trump. The fact that he wasn't removed from office even after he left to be the first president to be removed for leading an insurrection, you know, will definitely make the history books as a failure to act. So I think the first part of the question was about intimidation at the ballot box, and you know, we were very worried about that to begin with reports in Arizona of, you know, armed gunmen doing some voter intimidation. I was pleasantly surprised to see that that didn't materialize in the same way that we expected. I was pleasantly surprised that the meltdown over a red wave becoming a red trickle seemed to just be a tantrum on Fox News and did not lead to armed violence in the street, because that was very possible. And so I think that also speaks to the waning support for Donald Trump and that as an answer. The repudiation of a lot of election deniers in Arizona and other states where it seemed very likely that they were going to win. I think the incredible clear victory of DeSantis, who many are positioning and pivoting to see as the leader of the Republican Party, is also part of it. We will see what happened just as something that means absolutely nothing, big scale, but the fact that Ivanka and Jared said, we love him very much, but we will not be participating in his presidential run, and didn't show up to his announcement today. If they're not supporting him, I expect others to follow, but we saw that same trend in January of 2021 where Kevin McCarthy repudiated him and then went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. So a lot of it will depend on how the voters respond, Republican MAGA voters. And they kind of pushed Lindsey Graham back in line, pushed Kevin McCarthy back in line. Even Young Kim, when she voted against Trump for, I think, to strip Marjorie Taylor Greene of committee assignments, ended up getting death threats, and the Secret Service had to come. So it's the voters who support him that are really causing the biggest death threats and threat of violence. So.
Okay, a somewhat related question, and this is about Fox News and on election night, how they agreed that it's time for them to pull back from the crazies. And so given that there's so much money involved with the media, do you think there's going to be a change for the better?
So again, it depends what the viewers want. You know, they mildly stuck a toe into that water a couple of times. You know, if you watched Fox News coverage of January 6th, they were equally shocked and horrified by what happened, but then quickly got the memo from the top that the profits were at risk, and so got back on the Trump train pretty quickly. It will depend what their supporters think and what QAnon and the leaders are telling people to believe, and whether or not the veil will fall from their eyes or not. I don't know.
Okay, back to some local questions. Do you have any knowledge of Katie Porter's intention to run for U.S. Senate?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be Adam Schiff. So let me preface this. I don't think that Gavin Newsom would appoint either Adam Schiff or Katie Porter if Dianne Feinstein left office before 2024. If you read the New York Times, there are allegations that she is suffering from dementia. Her staff would not like to lose their jobs, so they are covering greatly Katie Porter and Adam Schiff and everyone else that would like to be a United States Senator would like her very much not to leave office before 2024, where they can fight it out in the primary. I don't know what will happen if Dianne Feinstein decides to retire or, unfortunately, doesn't make it to 2024. She is the oldest senator and will be 90 shortly. So it is possible that she won't make it. That will change the dynamics entirely. I believe Gavin Newsom as governor was pressured very much to replace Kamala Harris with a black woman. He pivoted and named Alex Padilla, giving Dr. Shirley Weber, Secretary of State. I think there would be a lot of pressure for him not to pick a white woman from Orange County to be United States Senator. I have no idea. I do not have insight into Gavin Newsom's brain, but definitely if it comes to an open primary in 2024, Adam Schiff and Katie Porter are already raising money for that race. And Dave Min probably helping, because he would like to run for Congress.
Okay, let's see. So, do you think most people actually believe, or most of Trump's people actually believe Trump won the 2020 election?
Yeah, I think the investigations of January 6th committee showed that pretty clearly that they don't. I think Liz Cheney gets a lot of credit for putting that in the record. I think that the record in those interviews were very clear. I think it was incredibly powerful for those of us who watched it, and at least for history to record, that it was Republican after Republican after Republican after Republican after Republican who was interviewed who said we knew that he lost, and we couldn't convince him of that. I think there's just a tremendous amount of pressure. Now, does Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert? Oh, Lauren Boebert. So close. Here's something else I got to tell you. Political consultants are ruining this. The political consultants that got Democratic donors to spend $15 million to Marcus Flowers, who had no chance of beating Marjorie Taylor Greene in a solid Republican district, if only a tenth of those had sent to Fitch, who was running against Lauren Boebert, she would have lost. So we have to stop sending money to people who are going to lose. But political consultants are making millions of dollars off of that. The real winner in the Los Angeles mayor's race, the political consultant who got $15 to $18 million from Rick Caruso's media buys. That we've got to stop. We've got to take a look at real hard data of who has a chance to win and who doesn't, and target that. If everybody who had been working to defeat Young Kim had instead worked to help Jay Chen get elected, we could have won 1 out of 2. We split those efforts. And I know you really wanted to get Mahmoud elected, but we've got to look at the data and be more calculating of where to put those resources. The fact that any Democrat was supporting one of the 4 Democrats running for Orange County Board of Supervisor when they all should have been sending their money to Katrina Foley to make sure that the outcome was majority Democrat on the Orange County Board of Supervisors, and let the chips fall where they may. I know none of the 4 of those candidates want me to say that out loud, but that calculation is what a Democratic Party who actually has a majority of the county seats needs to start doing. It's what the Republicans did 20 years ago. They've sort of fallen apart as they've lost the plurality of the registered voters, but that would have helped if nobody had sent money to Marjorie Taylor Greene's opponent.
Okay, follow-up question to that. Doesn't that mean that we should be donating our money to the DLCC, the DCCC, and what's the third one? DSCC.
No. DCCC was telling you to send money to Marcus Flowers. Nobody even put Lauren Boebert on the watch list. If you read an article, there's a really great article that came out of Colorado that said that effort to unseat Boebert was completely local. We have to trust local communities about what works and what doesn't. And I think the DCCC often wants to muck it up and get money for their political consultants, and it's not necessarily a good plan, and we've seen some potentially good races ruined by that. The DCCC should have been running national campaigns like the 1994 Newt Gingrich contract with America, of just running the footage from January 6th over and over and over and saying, do you want democracy or not? Vote Democrat. and then put in the slide of whatever Democrat was running in that particular district and leave the rest to the candidates to figure out how to knock on doors and campaign. But yeah, I don't think so. I think you got to vote local. All politics is local.
Can you take another couple questions? Sure. Okay. All right. So Foley and Porter are holding small and decreasing leads. If they lose, it looks like it would be almost a sweep for the Republican Party. So why?
Yeah, again, they got moved into districts where they hadn't represented before. Katrina Foley on purpose from the Republican-controlled Orange County Board of Supervisors. Katie, just by happenstance of where she chose to run, instead of trying to challenge young Kim, she could have run for 40 and had a much better chance. That incumbent versus incumbent would have been a monumental battle of titans. I don't know what the outcome would have been, but she chose to run, kind of musical chairs. I think that the drop in the votes, ever so slight, were from the ballots turned in at drop boxes. And so our hypothesis, again, I'm not sure if I'm right, but the hypothesis is that Republicans believed if they turned in that ballot to a person at a vote center, that it was a legitimate vote rather than dropping in a drop box. And so some of those were in the ballots that were counted last night and tonight. Those margins are still holding, and a lot of the 116,000 votes that are still to count will favor the Democrats from mail-in ballots and late ballots. So we believe, the New York Times backs me up, that Katie Porter is relatively safe, unless there's some drop that we can't anticipate and aren't hypothesizing why Republicans would have suddenly switched and put their ballots into the mailbox on Election Day. It's possible. But the trends seem pretty clear from the numbers that we're looking at that they'll win. But every vote matters.
Okay, and will a large countywide GOP defeat in the presidential election be enough to excise whatever is going on with the Republicans?
Wait, say that again.
Okay, if the Republicans lose all around the country, will that be enough to excise this craziness that's going on with them?
Wow, I don't know. I've been predicting Trump's loss since the escalator. He's survived so much that I didn't predict anybody would be able to survive. I think that what we will see in the next couple of months is more and more Republicans swinging their support away from Trump. He will not drop out, and so that battle will continue in the 2024 primary. I think that if Kevin McCarthy cannot hold the slim majority and the Speaker of the House is a rotating cast of characters, I think that it will depend on what the Republican Party does with their slim majority. We also have to win Georgia. There's a huge difference between 51 and 50. There is a huge difference between 51 and 50. With 50, even though Kamala Harris breaks the tie, it means that you have 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats on every committee, including Judiciary. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time to get those judges confirmed. 51 means they go fast. So Georgia is crucial. The hope, of course, is that Republican voters in Georgia will be slightly less enthusiastic about voting for Herschel Walker if he's not the majority, if he's not the 50th vote, if he's not the victory of 51. If all he does is get them to 50, they may be less excited by that because it's status quo. So Democrats really need to turn out the vote. But what happens in 2024, gosh, I don't know. I mean, who knows? So much could happen. Will they repudiate Trump? I don't know. DeSantis is, Trump's policy without the mean tweets. He's certainly a better communicator. He won Florida really easily. If you listen to what he says rather than how the media reports it, he is a strong communicator that makes social issues seem rational, that get reported really extreme. So he's well supported in Florida.
Okay, who do you think, when the time comes, who do you think would replace Nancy Pelosi as Speaker?
Gosh, I don't know. It will be a whole new world. There's a lot of young Gen X, millennial Democrats in Congress that would very much like to see a younger leadership, whether that's Speaker of the House or not, I don't know. But wow, I'm really glad the Democrats had Nancy Pelosi the last 2 years. Yeah. Threading that needle and hurting those cats, because the Democrats also have a very diverse a caucus of very moderate Democrats from places where liberal Democrats aren't going to get elected to social progressives, so Democratic socialists. So that was a really tough thing. I think if you're looking for a resume, the mother of 5 isn't a bad place to start. That's a strong work resume to get people to all move in the same direction, even when nobody wants to. But I don't know. It's hard. And I think it's a credit to Nancy Pelosi that we don't know who would replace her. I think that means she's squashed some uprisings. I can name 3 people who want to dethrone Kevin McCarthy just today. I can't name who wants to dethrone Nancy Pelosi. So that's a credit to her.
Okay, I have one question, and that's about the California initiative process. What do you think we need to do about that? Because there is so much money coming from corporate interests, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and promoting lies a lot of the time. So what do you think is the solution?
Wow. Yeah, the money will always find a way. So the hope is that we keep voting against bad initiatives. At least the gambling initiative cost those folks $500 million. But as we saw with the dialysis on there 3 times, there's an incentive for people to put things on the ballot to play other games. And so I don't know, but we'd have to amend the Constitution to do that. There have been a couple of tweaks where we've raised the cost, so it was no longer just $250 to get an initiative qualified for the Attorney General. The signature gathering is absurd, the paid. If I could have a magic wand and slightly curtail democracy, I would say don't allow paid signature gatherers. Some of the local measures were $25 a signature. That's absurd. They were paying up to $10 for some of the signature gatherings. So could we train people not to sign petitions? I don't know. But hopefully the voters rejecting it will allow it. One of the quirks that we end up with is that if you pass something by initiative, you can only change it with another initiative. And so the reason that the gambling initiatives had to be on the ballot is because we originally legalized gambling on Indian reservations by an initiative, incredibly expensive to begin with, and now to fix it, to change it, to amend it in any way, we have to do that. I don't know. I don't have a magic wand.